Luffy asks Loki to join his crew because if Loki becomes a Straw Hat, he kinda becomes Luffy's responsibility. Plus, Elbaf wouldn't want to cage up a Yonko's crew member, right? Instantly though, Zoro and mainly Faivanji are like, hell nah bruh, if this dude joins the crew, he might become the second strongest after Luffy with this Soul God fruit. On a serious note though, both their arguments are valid. Zoro can't think of a way for Loki to fit on the ship. A normal giant is larger than the Sunny and they already look tiny compared to Loki, who has ancient island puller DNA. Plus, how the hell are they gonna feed Loki? We saw bro was munching on that meat at the same rate as Luffy. How is Faivanji supposed to find even more locks for the fridge, bruh? But Luffy says that Elbaf doesn't want him and he seems alright. Plus, if he tries anything, Luffy can just beat him up. Through Luffy's confidence here, Oda is basically telling us or confirming that Loki is still weaker than Luffy. As absurd as Loki joining the crew seems, especially after being burnt by the prospect of Carrot joining or especially Yamato last arc, honestly on the surface, Loki seems like a better candidate. Hear me out, okay? Hear me out. Other than the person he was speaking to on the snail last chapter, Loki doesn't really have any friends or even an actual home since Elbaf finds him too dangerous. If we are fighting against Imu and his goons in the final war, then an asset like Loki makes perfect sense. Plus, he does the thing of rejecting Luffy's offer. Almost every Straw Hat on the crew has done something similar, where Luffy had to prove himself or convince them to join throughout an arc, especially a super strong member. Zoro didn't want to join up with a pirate since he was literally the pirate hunter and he thought his willpower was larger than Luffy, so it was like, why would I join your crew, bruh? Nami was working for Arlong and stole the Mary, rejecting Luffy's offer. Sanji had to be pushed by Zeph and the restaurant to pursue his dream of finding the All Blue, as he had said no to Luffy at first. Even Robin in a way rejected the crew so that no harm would come to them in Water 7. The size issue isn't even that big of a deal since we have a mechanism at the Owl Library which can change the size of books. With Vegapunk on the island, I'm sure they can jerry-rig a machine that can shrink Loki down. The only thing stopping this from happening is the fact that Loki sees himself as the sun god of destruction, with him being inspired by Rocksteady Xebec. Luffy and the Straw Hats parallel Roger, so it's more likely that Loki will go on his own path after the Elbaf arc where he figures out that Luffy is actually the real Nika. But he won't stray too far away from Luffy because just like Rocks, Loki's hate for the Celestial Dragons and the current world order will bring them together. So with Imu showing up in Elbaf and turning into a direct enemy of Luffy, Loki will accompany the gang to Marishwa and wreak havoc alongside Monkey Deadbeat Dragon, in the process becoming an honorary member rather than a full-fledged Straw Hat. Even with the danger Loki poses, Gaban tells Hiruden to release him. This man has been around the block. As soon as he felt Imu's haki, Gaban knew how dangerous the situation had become. They will need all the help they can get because remember, even though the old man four-shot Saint Diddy, within a few moments through the God Haki strikes, Summers rose back up to fight. Still, the Giants are reluctant as we learn that 14 years ago, Loki not only killed his father, but also 113 members of the Castle Guard, leaving Elder Ja Rule at the brink of death. But Gaban says that he felt a strange haki coming out of the castle that day. This must have been such a strong haki that Shanks conveniently was hanging out with the old man as they both went there to investigate. Rat-haired Shanks, guys, rat-haired Shanks. I'm telling y'all, I'll explain later. With that haki now feeling similar to the Gods Knights and Imu, I don't think we have the whole story yet. Throughout all of this though, Luffy only heard Shanks and locked into the Yap session, asking Zoro, Sanji, and the rest of the Giants to leave for the Sun World. While Luffy, Hiruden listened to the backstory of that day to figure out if they should let Loki out or not. He gets 3 minutes to explain everything that happened 14 years ago. Instantly, Loki says that it's cruel for them to ask him to relive that day, which gives a sympathetic sympathetic vibe towards Loki's perspective. Before bro was even born, King Harold prophesized that he would be killed by his own son. Then the Horse of Fortune died, followed up by Ja Rule's brother, the hero Jorul, perished by the hands of Big Mom. These events, especially after his mother's death, caused Loki to feel isolated, as if he's the reason for all the bad things happening in Elbaf. I bet the villagers didn't directly show it, but they definitely made Loki feel unwanted. Kinda similar to how Naruto, when parents of other children would tell their kids to not play with the demon fox child. This resulted in Loki crashing out and taking his pranks for attention so far that he burnt down a whole village while his father was away. So with the king and the guards dead, Loki being at the location, having eaten a fruit he wasn't supposed to, it was easy for everyone to point their fingers at the young prince. From Loki's perspective, 14 years ago, he and Ja Rule were invited to the castle by King Harold. On the way, we learned that the king was definitely working with the world government, as Loki says he sold out to the people that killed rocks. Ja Rule, however, is kinda tired of all the politics stuff. Loki is angry that the new generation of giants are raised without the warrior culture of Elbaf, but instead feel like weaklings who can't even fight. Ja Rule, though, likes that change in Elbaf. He wants his great-great-grandchildren to not see combat and instead pursue peace. Possible that King Harold was in Marie Joie and Imu had put his mark on him. Or one of the God's Knights has the power to manipulate people, similar to Doflamingo, leading to the moment we see in the flashback of King Harold being stabbed by his guards as he was about to make a devilish decision that would endanger all of Elbaf, and at this very moment Loki and Ja Rule strolled in, causing Imu to not only take over Harold but the guards at the castle too. We know Imu must have descended because of the insane haki we see emanating from the castle, which is just like the present, and that's the same castle where Shamrock and Yonko teleported into. The gates were closed and a massacre begun, and the only people surviving were the two strongest, Ja Rule and Loki. With Loki using his conquerors to blast Imu away, I don't think Loki did this massacre because bro was wielding a hammer while Ja Rule is having a sword stuck on his head. If it was really Loki, then people would be smashed to death, not cut, alright? We also see a mysterious figure finding the chest that holds the forbidden fruit of Elbaf. Now, we know that Loki allegedly ate the legendary fruit 14 years ago, so this could be Loki stumbling upon it, and using the powers of this fruit, he was able to defend against Imu and the knights as well. However, there is another theory in the community that this fruit in the chest is different from the legendary fruit, as Oda calls it the forbidden one, something that no one is supposed to eat. So what if this was actually the Gomu Gomu no Mi, and it was stolen in this chaos, but then how did it end up in East Blue? If the government took it, then Imu wouldn't let it go away at any cost because it's Joy Boy's fruit. There's one possibility, I guess, that Loki took the legendary and forbidden fruit, but then after eating one of them, he sold the other to get his pirate career started. But the simplest explanation is that this is the same fruit Loki likely ate. And honestly, like, if you look at the timelines, yeah, so this happened 14 years ago, and then Shanks shows up in East Blue, like what, 12, 13 years ago, and then Luffy eats the fruit 12 years ago because he was 7 years old, he's 19 right now. So the timeline kind of makes sense. If you really want to stretch it, that Loki took both of the fruits. Whatever the case, we see a forbidden fruit. If you enjoyed this video, go watch the other One Piece video on screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.